Hi everybody, it's Agnes and welcome to another interview. Today it is with someone that you've seen before but haven't seen for a long time. It's Dan in the UK, in England. Hi Dan.
Yeah, you're all right. Up in the northwest in Cheshire. UK, and the sun's shining today.
I can see that. I can see you are enjoying the much better weather there, which is fantastic. So thank you for coming. And you and I decided we would do what we did quite some time ago, and is go through a bit of Neville's book. And you have chosen Feeling is the Secret, which is definitely one on my bookshelf. So you're going to read a bit to us.
Book. I am, yeah. I'm looking at chapter 2 from this book on sleep, which I thought was a quite fascinating chapter, really. Because it talks about the power of sleep, and this time which occupies a third of our lives, when we can really put Neville's sort of techniques to work, really in a really good way for us, and really benefit from reap the rewards from it. So I'll just pick out some passages from it, which, because obviously there's quite a lot of religious bits in here, which are probably a little bit too sort of I don't know, a bit sort of to get. I'd rather just sort of concentrate on the main bits, if that's okay.
Yes.
So I'll just start. So sleep, the life that occupies 1/3 of our stay on Earth, is the natural door into the subconscious. So it's with sleep that we are now concerned. The conscious 2/3 of our life on Earth is measured by the degree of attention we give sleep. Our understanding of and delight in what sleep has to bestow will cause us, night after night, to set out for it as though we were keeping an appointment with a lover. It is in sleep and in prayer, a state akin to sleep, that man enters the subconscious to make his impressions and receive his instructions. In these states, the conscious and subconscious are creatively joined. The male and female become one flesh. Sleep is the time when the male or conscious mind turns from the world of sense to seek its lover or subconscious self. The subconscious, unlike the woman of the world who marries a husband to change him, has no desire to change the conscious waking state, but loves it as it is and faithfully reproduces its likeness in the outer world of form. The conditions and events of your life are your children, formed from the moulds of your subconscious impressions in sleep. They are made in the image and likeness of your innermost feelings, that they may reveal you to yourself. So what I got from that was it's almost like sleep is an imaginal conception, if you like. Going to sleep, and you're almost having this union of the conscious and the subconscious, which is a kind of imaginal sex, if you like. Reproduces,
it is.
Which then reproduces
the children.
The outcomes. The children, yes, the birth of these events that would then happen following it. So sleep is a real sort of powerhouse of manifesting, really. I think it's a time when we haven't got the distractions that we normally have in the daytime. When you're trying to imagine something, where you try and take a few moments out of your day to sit and think, or visualize and do your little sort of bit like Neville does at 3 p.m. when he has his lie down. But obviously things happen in the day when you're doing that, and the phone will ring, or somebody will call you, or somebody will come in, and it's a little bit more difficult. But sleep is this time when we've got this ideal opportunity to really sort of use the power of Neville, really. And I also think, off the back of that, I think revision is probably that's probably why revision's so important, because I know Neville talks a lot about revising your day, doesn't he? And looking back on the day that you've had, and revising bits that you didn't like. And I think what he means, at least partly, is to go back over parts of the day that didn't quite sit right with you emotionally, so that you're not carrying those feelings into your sleep.
Yeah, for sure. I think what you do before you go to sleep, what your thoughts are on, what you're emotional body is focused on, that is often what impacts your dreams. And then you wake up with the hangover from that night before, whether it was, you know, you do wake up with a kind of a dream hangover, I suppose. So yeah, planting seeds. I mean, for those that don't understand Neville or aren't very familiar with him, he talks about SATs, S-A-T-S, states akin to sleep. I just thought I'd explain that because I know some people don't know what it means. Yeah. But it's that period between when you lay down and you go into that hazy just before sleep. You're still conscious, but you're dropping into sleep. That's the state just before sleep, akin to sleep, as he says in his little.
Bridge of the subconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful
bridge
time.
To the subconscious, I think.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Mm.
And I know sort of we discussed before about what we watch before we go to sleep sometimes, and the programs that we fill our minds with before, in the evenings and stuff. I used to watch quite a lot of horrors and supernatural sort of thrillers and stuff, which obviously sometimes deal with quite dark subjects. And I don't do that anymore because I was finding that I was thinking about them and before I went to sleep, and then obviously reading Neville and learning about sort of mental diets and what you're sort of feeding your mind before you go to sleep. I sort of stopped doing that now, which is a shame because I do love horrors, but I tend to watch them more in the early on in the day, and then sort of, I don't know, read a bit of something like Wayne Dyer or Louise Hay or somebody before bed to sort of lift the vibe a little bit before going to bed. It does make you very conscious of what you put in your mind. Neville talks a lot about mental diets, doesn't he? And what we feed our minds with, in the daytime. And I never thought about it before I read Neville, really.
No.
What I think.
And you think, oh my goodness, there are hundreds of thousands of people around the world that watch CSI Miami or Criminal Minds or Law and Order, Special Victims Unit or whatever, that stuff that is dark. And you think you're putting that into your head, and you think how much of that affects, what goes on in your sleep world, in your dream world. But then what happens to you on a day level? What happens to you? Does that attract extremely negative situations to you? I mean, I don't really want to actually test that out and find out. I'd rather just stop watching it personally, because some of that stuff's really not good. It's not good. And you relive it. Not only do you live it when you're watching it, you relive it when you go to bed.
Yeah, it's almost like junk food for the soul, for the mind, isn't it, really?
Junk food.
Because you do sort of get
It is.
You do sort of like, well, it's like one of those things where it's dark, and it's sort of, it's a thriller. It thrills you because it's a thriller, but not in a it's entertainment, but it's probably it's quite dark entertainment.
Yeah.
It fills your mind with sort of, with bad sort of, it's just bad stuff, isn't it? Really?
It is.
You don't really think about it. You think, oh, it's entertainment. It's a show, and it grips you because it's a thriller. But actually,
I know.
It affects your subconscious mind without you even realizing. I think
for sure,
because you consciously think, well, I'm watching it, and I know it's not real, and I know it's not real. I know it's bad, but actually, your subconscious doesn't know it's not real, and so you're taking all that in, aren't you?
For sure.
Sure. So I'll just do a little bit more from from this.
Yeah, for sure.
The unconscious, as in the subconscious, so on Earth, whatever you have in consciousness as you go to sleep is the measure of your expression in the waking 2/3 of your life on Earth, which I think is what we've just been saying, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nothing stops you from realizing your objective, save your failure to feel that you are already that which you wish to be, or that you are already in possession of the thing sought. Your subconscious gives form to your desires only when you feel your wish fulfilled. The unconsciousness of sleep is the normal state of the subconscious. because all things come from within yourself, and your conception of yourself determines that which comes, you should always feel the wish fulfilled before you drop off to sleep. You never draw out of the deep of yourself that which you want. You always draw that which you are, and you are that which you feel yourself to be, as well as that which you feel as true of us as others. To be realised then, the wish must be resolved into the feeling of being, or having, or witnessing the state sought. This is accomplished by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The feeling which comes in response to the question, how would I feel were my wish realised, is the feeling which should monopolise and immobilise your attention as you relax into sleep. You must be in the consciousness of being or having that which you want to be or to have before you drop off to sleep. So yeah, that's, we're talking about like the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and sort of getting into that feeling. I think you were saying before about that time just before you drop off to sleep. I think I've sort of interpreted this a little bit like your consciousness is almost like the guardian of the subconscious, and in the daytime it's very difficult to suppress the conscious mind which says, oh, that's not possible, or this isn't possible. I think just before you go to sleep, like you were saying before, your consciousness is a little bit less guarded, your conscious mind, I should say. So you're a bit more impressionable in that sort of before sleep state, aren't you? And I think that's why it's saying there is it's so important to get into the feeling just before you go to in order to sort of make the most of it, really.
And I think too, a lot of your senses, like when you go into bed, it's like your senses are much more shut down than during the day. You can close your eyes. It's probably nothing much around that you can smell or taste or hear. So you shut those down, and then you can use the imagination uninterrupted by the distractions of the senses. That's why I think states akin to sleep are so powerful, because you have nothing else in the peripheral that's pulling you here, here, here. Your focus can be pinpointed, and that makes it easier to get into the wish fulfilled, and that makes it easier to then, because your body is laying in a relaxed and surrendered state, hopefully, depending on what kind of day you had. You've kind of created the best soil to be able to plant the imaginal scenes into the night, the soil of the night, just before you go into sleep, and therefore they can germinate at night. And it's such a lovely time to do it. I know a lot of people say, oh, but I'm so tired and I don't like doing it before sleep. But you got to ask yourself, did I go to bed too late? Did I watch the crime shows? You know, like you can switch the TV off a half an hour earlier. You can actually make choices that you kind of correct your exhaustion in other parts of your day. You know, because I know a lot of people go, oh, you know, I work all week and I just want to stay up and watch stuff, but then you wake up exhausted again and it creates this vicious cycle. Whereas if you go to bed a half an hour to 45 minutes earlier, you can actually use that time to not go to bed right at the last second, and you literally drop off to sleep in 30 seconds to, 10 minutes, because you've just pushed yourself to the limit. I think, you got to look at, what am I doing between dinner and bedtime? What am I doing in that pocket of time? What do I do in that pocket of time? And we make choices.
I think it's also important, like what you eat as well, and what you put in your body throughout the day, because I think that can also affect how well you can get into that state as well. Because I know sometimes if I've had alcohol or something before I go to bed, or I really can't sort of end up dropping off straight away.
You do.
I don't I can't get into that. Into that state, really.
No. Well, you even forget.
It takes practice.
If you've had a few drinks, you don't even remember to do it, let alone try. Oh,
true,
God. Yeah. So
I think,
Dan, can I ask you, have you used it, have you used this technique and it's worked and you got some kind of result? Like, has it worked for you? Have you fiddled around with it a little bit?
I've done, yeah, I fiddled around a little bit with it. I try and do it on, I've done it on small things first. I always say sort of start small, don't they?
Yeah.
I tried, I think we discussed a while ago on Facebook, I did a test with a tennis ball.
Oh yeah.
The tennis ball test, which is in one of Neville's lectures, of course, where he's talking about sort of belief and everything. He says, try something small that you can easily visualize and you can easily imagine, you know, that you can easily believe, and you can easily convince yourself that it will manifest. So probably about 2 months ago now, I thought I'll try and manifest a tennis ball.
Yeah.
So I did go to bed, probably for about a week. I tried it for about a week. Did this sort of before sleep thing and lay there. First couple of nights it was quite hard to sort of switch off, because I think it does take a lot of practice, this sort of thing. It's something you have to do regularly, I think. Not just like as and when you need it sort of thing. I think it's a good habit to get into, doing every night if you can. So I went to bed and I sort of imagined the feel of the yellow fur, the colour of it, and the smell of the rubber. So I was going to bed sniffing rubber. And I did that for 2 weeks. Sorry, about a week and a half actually. And sort of imagine myself holding the tennis ball, feeling the fluff of the tennis ball and bouncing the tennis ball. Nothing happened for probably, I don't know, about a week and a half. I think as well, there's a danger when you do this kind of thing is you start looking for it.
You do.
Which I think I did at first. I was looking around, walking around, thinking, is there a tennis ball under that hedge, or kind of thing. And then I almost got to the point where I thought, I'm not gonna look for it anymore. I'm just gonna leave it now. I'm gonna believe in the process. I'm gonna trust in the process. I'm gonna keep doing my little visualizations. And I went running one night. And I was completely in the zone, and I just happened to look down, and there was a tennis ball on the path, like just random tennis ball.
How much later? How much later was it? Like after you did it?
Probably about 2 weeks, I think.
Okay,
it wasn't straight away, because I know.
So long enough to forget. Enough to forget. Yeah.
And I think because I think sometimes people say, "Oh, it happens in a few days," but I don't think you don't necessarily can put a time on it. I think it happens when it happens, and I think things happen when they happen. And I thought, is it just a coincidence? I think sometimes the subconscious mind thinks, is it just a coincidence? So I thought I'll try it with a different coloured ball. I'll try it with a red tennis ball. So then repeated the process, but this time with a bald, sort of slightly rubber showing your red tennis ball. And I did the same thing again, and sure enough, a couple of weeks later, a red tennis ball appeared under a hedge.
Nice.
So I think it, it definitely works. I'm sort of working on to bigger things now. I'm trying to I've manifested a few sort of texts from people, and when I've not heard from them for a while, I've imagined seeing a little bubble coming up at the bottom of the phone and their face on the bubble. And sort of that's happened a couple of times. Nothing massive yet though.
Okay.
I'm working on bigger things, but I'm definitely using the technique. Getting into the whole. I know John Kironde talks a lot about using different senses, doesn't he? Like sound, like the bouncing of the ball, the sound it makes, the smell of it, and the feel and the appearance of it. And I know sort of his book's very good for that. Using your different senses, because because sometimes you wouldn't think about the sound of a tennis ball. You'd think immediately, think of the colour of it, wouldn't you? The bright yellow and the feel of it.
But
Whereas you wouldn't
not the
think of the
smell.
sound of bouncing the ball.
Yeah.
Not the smell, no. It does have that sort of slightly rubbery.
Yeah, and it's funny when you mention that. It's like I instantly smelt it, because the white bits that go around in between the yellow, that has got such a rubbery smell. So, I mean, you know, as a kid, you just know that smell. You just, so yeah, it's good using things that you have some kind of natural link to, like so many of us do from childhood. Tennis balls were part of school and part of weekends or whatever. Whether you liked it or not, you were just around it and it became familiar. So I remember I used it for...
I want to try it.
Sorry, say it again.
Sorry, you go. It's all right.
I tried it for when I was in Sydney and I wasn't traveling yet. I used it to imagine, like when I'd go to bed, I'd imagine being on the plane and strapping in my seatbelt. And then I would see them do the safety thing. And then I would hear them closing the exit doors. And then I would, you know, there's that hum when you're in the aircraft. It's, you know, the air conditioning or whatever it is. This is constant. And then I would feel the seat, you know, where you get pulled back into the seat when the plane takes off. And
I love that. I love taking off. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, and it feels like the tail's going to drag, and it never does. But it feels like the plane goes woof, like that before it goes. And I thought, you know, the trips at that point that I had, I remembered those details, and I thought, right, I'm going to recreate that. And I did it for months, because I didn't believe that I could travel, because at that point I didn't have any money. And I didn't think that I could do it regularly. It was like a once every 10-year event for me at that point. You know, I just didn't have the money to travel. So yeah, I started imagining that, and it was fun. And then, you know, the first trip happened, fully paid. And then I had made a bold statement as well, saying I now travel 4 times a year, fully paid. And then I laughed, because I thought, how the hell is that going to happen? You know, but I must have done it enough for it to hatch. But yeah, I did that a lot, like for probably a month, 6 weeks, 2 months, something like that. I did it a lot, not every night, but a good 5 days a week. And that became from 2016. That has, well, it's been now 4 years. I've been doing that every 4 times a year since then. Which is mind-blowing when I look back. I didn't believe, I mean, I believed it, but I didn't believe it. I believed it, and then I didn't believe it. But the Imaginal scene, it's like you just do it, whether you believe it or not. You just try and get into it while you're doing it, and then you let it go. And I would always default back to not believing it during the day, because my mind didn't have that big of a stretch, you know. But it was enough. It was enough. Yeah.
And that's the hardest bit, isn't it? I think sometimes, because I think it's very easy to get caught up in the how it's going to happen. The what, I think, so they say, don't they, that you're supposed to concentrate on what you want to manifest and
not
feel
how.
that, and that's your, you know, feel the reality of that, and that is your job, if you like. That's your job done.
Exactly.
But then it's all, we often get caught up in the how can that possibly happen? I can't see a way of that ever happening. And where's it going to come from? Where's the money going to come from? Where's the person going to come from?
I know.
I haven't spoken to them for 3 months, you know, or whatever. And I think it's very easy to get caught up in, which then affects your belief, really, because you start thinking, how can that possibly happen?
I know. But you know what, Dan? Once it happens on a reasonably amazing thing, you know, whether it's a tennis ball or a trip, when you first do it and you first get a result, it builds the first level of confidence. Then you do another one, it builds kind of another layer of confidence. And it's like, now I find when I do it, I go, if my head goes, oh, how's that gonna, then the next, it's like my head just cuts the sentence off. How's that going to, who cares? That's not, doesn't matter. And then I just go right back away from that train of thinking, because my whole being has had the experience now of it working and working multiple times on small, medium, and bigger things. So it's like when you do it, the confidence level increases and you become someone who believes it, because you've got your own experience, not someone else's success story, your success story. And that is, I think, the thing that just builds over time. I think that just builds over time.
Yeah, and sometimes I think the way things happen, you couldn't possibly have imagined it would have happened that way in some circumstances. Because I think if you try and get caught up in the how, I think you won't be able to work out how, because the subconscious works in ways that you can't imagine, I think. And something that will happen that will then bring that thing to you in a chain of events.
Correct.
And you won't necessarily be able to see those chain of events from your vantage point where you are. Obviously from a sort of higher dimension, as it were, you know, the dots or the bridge of events are all mapped out to bring that to you. And I think that's where the subconscious has got that link to this superconscious, or, you know, this higher dimension where it can map out the way that the path that we can't consciously see, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, because it's like you do your imaginal scene before you go to bed, you plant the seeds, and what happens, this is how I kind of, having done it again and again, it's like it creates this line of energy between you and the thing. And that, it's like it comes alive. It's like, you know, when you see those, you know, those fire, like they do fire tricks and stuff at night. So the fire's really bright and you see it in like a ring or a line, and then they light it and the whole thing just goes whoosh with the fire. It's like that. As soon as you plant it's like it just, the fire just ignites that rope, or it ignites that ring. And I remember always thinking, that's what I'm doing. I'm creating this intense, pinpointed line of energy. As soon as I plant the seeds, I let it go into sleep. It's like woof, that line of energy then ignites, connects me to the thing, and then it just sort of comes down into the experience. Whether it's 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, we don't know. But the more you do it, just for the pure, because it's so much fun to just ignite something like that. It's amazingly fun. Yeah,
it is a lot of fun. I think sometimes when it's something that you're not necessarily too emotionally attached to, like a tennis ball, it's almost more fun because you haven't got that emotional investment in it, or you haven't got that distraction. You can just purely concentrate on the process of manifesting. And I think this is where the impress is really good, isn't it? Before sleep as well, where you impress, you know, that phrase, you know, I don't know, I'm just, for example, I am rich and wealthy, I have everything I need, kind of thing. Saying that over and over again, or, you know, I am loved, I am wanted before bed, you know. It's almost like you're saying, pinpointing that that power, like a bit like I don't know, like a stiletto heel on a balloon or something.
Yes.
You know, really like pushing down.
It is like,
so powerful, isn't it, as well? And
you know, I think that's one of the things is working out which phrase am I going to impress, or which scene am I going to, because it's got to be, I've realized over the years, the more I do this, the more simplistic and simplified my scenes become. So clipping in the seatbelt, seeing them do the mask and the this and the that, and then shutting the exit doors, and then feeling the plane take off. It's got 4 very distinct sections in that imaginal scene. Now, I haven't done that scene for 4 years, but I can relate to you because I did it so much. I remember it. So it's like that had 4 very distinct parts. Some of it was sound, the exit doors, hearing the clip of the seatbelt. I felt the seatbelt across my body, across my shoulders, clipped it in. And I know, what am I talking about? That's the car seatbelt, the plain one's around the waist. So it's around the waist, you hear the click because it's that metal thing that goes like that. So it's activating the eyes, it's activating the sound, and it's activating the feeling of being in the plane as it takes off. You can feel the rush. Didn't really use smell in that one, and didn't really use taste in that one. So it was some of the senses, but not all the senses. You've got to have the senses that are relevant to the manifesting scene. So it's really good when you can identify what it is. Like you described the tennis ball, that had very distinct elements of, you smelt the rubber, you heard the ball bouncing, you could feel the fuzzy, yellow, hairy bit. It's very distinct. So
that's it.
Good.
It's employing all the senses. And this is just an example of something that happened to me a while ago now. And I think this is an idea of just how strong, how powerful the mind and the subconscious can be. And I had a dream. I was drinking or eating an orange, and I woke up and I could taste orange in my mouth. I'd had such a vivid dream. I could actually taste orange in my mouth, and I think that is almost like a tribute to how, if you can tap into the power of imagination, that is how powerful it can be, I think.
Definitely.
And I know sometimes when I've had sort of semi-lucid dreams where I've been aware that I've been dreaming, and I've managed to sort of think of something and it instantly appears in my dream, sort of thing. And I know some writers have talked about like being in, because we live in the third dimension. There's that delay between what we think about and what we imagine and when it actually appears. But in the sort of higher dimensions, things ultimately appear instantaneously. Right, and certain people, like Jesus, for instance, can instantly manifest things, and that's what they reckon, that Jesus was sort of he was a higher dimensional being that could do that kind of thing. Some sort of Eastern mystics can do these things where they can instantly manifest because they're almost they've sort of ascended, if you like, to that level where they can. So the imagination is so powerful, and their sort of belief is so powerful that the manifestations just come straight away, almost.
For sure.
Which is quite fascinating.
Quite
fascinating interpretation. Because I think even the Bible says, doesn't it, that we're all gods. We can all create. We can co-create. Like we've all got that power within us to do those things, which is really really interesting.
It is. It's just practicing it.
It's that muscle, isn't it? Using that muscle, as it were.
It is
practicing muscle.
So
I've got another from this is a book by somebody called Genevieve Behrend. It's called Your Invisible Power. Now, she was she was born in 1881 and she lived till 1960. She's from France, born in Paris. She lived in New York for a long time, and she got into sort of mental science, as it were, and new thought movements. She was just before, I think she sort of predates Neville, really. She came across this guy called Thomas Troward, and he was like a new thought writer, a bit like sort of Neville, really, and all the other Joseph Murphy and etc. And study under this Thomas Troward. She wanted to sort of study new thought movement and law of attraction, etc. under him, but she didn't have the money in order to to get to Cornwall, where he lived, in order to study with him. So she had to sort of practice visualization in order to get there. So I'm just going to find the chapter. So it's chapter 1 in the book, and it's how I attracted to myself $20,000. So I'll just read through that if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
In the laboratory of experience in which my newly revealed relation to divine operation was to be tested, the first problem was a financial one. My income was a stipulated one, quite enough for my everyday needs, but it did not seem sufficient to enable me to go comfortably to England, where Thomas Troward lived, and remain for an indefinite period to study with so great a teacher as he must be. So before inquiring whether Troward took pupils or whether I would be eligible in case he did, I began to use the paragraph I had memorised. Daily, in fact, almost hourly, these words were in my mind. My mind is a centre of divine operation, and divine operation means expansion into something better than that's gone before. So from the Edinburgh lectures I'd read, something about the law of attraction, and from the chapter of causes and conditions, I had gleaned a vague idea of visualizing. So every night, before going to sleep, I made a mental picture of the desired $20,000. 20 $1,000 bills were counted over each night in my bedroom. And then, with the idea of more emphatically impressing my mind with the fact that this $20,000 was for the purpose of going to England and studying with Troward, I wrote out my picture, saw myself buying my steamer ticket, walking up and down the ship's deck from New York to London, and finally saw myself accepted as Troward's pupil. This process was repeated every morning and every evening, always impressing more and more fully upon my mind Troward's memorised statement. My mind is the centre of divine operations. I endeavoured to keep this statement in the back of my consciousness all the time, with no thought in mind as to how the money might be obtained. Probably the reason why there was no thought of the avenues through which the money might reach me was because I could not possibly imagine where $20,000 would come from. So I simply held my thought steady and let the power of attraction find its own ways and means. One day, while walking on the street, taking deep breathing exercises, the thought came, my mind is surely a centre of divine operation. If God fills all space, then God must be in my mind also. If I want this money to study with Troward, that I may know the truth of life, then both the money and the truth must be mine, though I am unable to see or feel the physical manifestations of either. Still, I declared, it must be mine. And then, obviously, a few weeks later, this money turns up.
How does it turn up again?
So quite similar to
does it say? Because I didn't read that part. How did it turn up?
Sorry about this.
No, it's okay.
Okay. While these reflections were going on in my mind, there seemed to come up from within me the thought, I am all the substance there is. Then, from another channel in my brain, the answer seemed to come. Of course, that's it. Everything must have its beginning in mind. The idea, must be the only one and primary substance there is, and this means money as well as everything else. My mind accepted this idea, and immediately all the tension in mind and body was relaxed. There was a feeling of absolute certainty of being in touch with all the power life has to give. All thought of money, teacher, or even my own personality vanished in the great wave of joy which swept over my entire being. I walked on and on with this feeling of joy steadily increasing and expanding until everything about me seemed aglow with resplendent light. Every person I passed was illuminated as I was. All consciousness of personality had disappeared, and in its place there came with that great and almost overwhelming sense of joy and contentment. That night, when I made my picture of the $20,000, it was with an entirely changed aspect. On previous occasions, when making the picture, I'd felt that I was waking up something within myself. This time, there was no sensation of effort. I simply counted over the $20,000. Then, in a most unexpected manner, from a source of which I had no consciousness at the time, there seemed to open a possible avenue for which the money might reach me. At first, it took great effort not to be too excited. It all seemed so wonderful, so glorious to be in touch with supply. But had not Troward cautioned his readers to keep all excitement out of their minds in the first flush of realisation of union with infinite supply, and to treat this fact as a perfectly natural result that had been reached through our demand, this was even more difficult for me than it was to hold the thought that all substance there is, I am. Just as soon as there appeared a circumstance which indicated the direction through which the $20,000 might come, I not only made a supreme effort to regard the indicated direction calmly, as the first sprout of the seed I had sown in the absolute, but left no stone unturned to follow up that direction by fulfilling my part. By so doing, one circumstance seemed naturally to lead to another, until, step by step, my desired $20,000 was secured. To keep my mind poised and free from excitement was my greatest effort.
Beautiful.
So it's like she let go of all sort of how and why and any anxiety, and that sort of almost cleared the block. Yeah. And it sort of came.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
And can you imagine how much money that would have been in those days? Like that would have been like, $200,000 now. It's brilliant.
It would. Yeah. It's incredible, really, what you can do when you really sort of believe in these things, really.
And put in the morning and night. She did it twice a day. Morning and night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely.
It's that discipline, isn't it, to sort of to do that when you're not necessarily getting into that feeling, generating that feeling within. Definitely.
Yeah, be nice to I don't know, like have a little, some kind of session where we actually put this into practice with other people, and we do it as a one-off and see people can have their own desires in their own areas, whether it's money, meaningful work, a trip, losing 30 kilos, whatever it is, an amazing relationship, or who cares? Everybody could have different desires, and then we practice it. I think there's power in doing it as a group. You can obviously do it on your own, but I think there's something about doing things simultaneously because it motivates people to do it. I think that might be, and they could do a tennis ball. They could do, start with small things and practice developing this muscle, so to speak. Yeah, be an interesting thing to try.
Yeah, have like a hierarchy, couldn't you? You could start with like a tennis ball, and you could have like a baseball and a cricket ball, and then at the top you've got like $20,000 or whatever.
You go like the levels in you go from a yellow belt, a white belt to a yellow belt to an orange belt, and you go all the way up to a black belt in like me, it's very small to medium to large. See how you can develop this.
I think it is that, like you were saying before, it's that platforms of belief, isn't it?
Platforms of belief,
it's all down to what you can conceive, isn't it? I think what you can conceive as possible is what you can achieve, and I think it's a very simple thing, but it's very hard to train your mind to do that. And I think that's where the practice comes in, isn't it?
And being consistent.
Definitely.
Like you see, a lot of people start things, but to keep things going, that's where it takes more practice. And I find just setting alarms on the phone, remember to do your Imaginal scene. Now you've got phones that can, every Monday to Sunday, you can program it to give you an alarm alert at a certain time. So you go, oh, I would have forgot, thank you. And you just go in and you do it. So, having these things in place to really keep you on top of it would be a really good thing. If you want to practice it on your own, set the alarms twice a day. Remind yourself, because it's like after about 4 or 5 days, it's like you forget. You just kind of often forget.
You do.
So that's a lovely story.
And I think also, it is, isn't it? Yeah. she's almost like a female Neville, because I think she studied under this Thomas Troward, and then she went to New York and
they're both in New York.
Yeah, and I think she went to LA eventually, but I think Neville did as well, though, didn't he? Neville went to LA eventually as well.
Yeah, and he spent
I think she was
a lot of time in New York. Yeah.
But it's a fascinating read, because it's not just about the techniques, but it's also a little bit about her life and a time with this Thomas Troward, and how she sort of developed how she developed the skills and stuff. So it's almost like a bit of a biography of sort of a journey, really. It's quite a fascinating.
Can you hold that book up again so people can see the title of it, Dan?
Yeah, sure.
What's it called?
Yeah.
Your Invisible,
Your Invisible
Power. Okay. And
so Genevieve Behrend.
Yeah, I'll put the link down below, but just so people can see what it looks like. Yeah, great. And can you hold up the other book just for people that missed The Feeling and the Secret book?
Yeah, sure.
Because that's a lovely little book too. Yeah, it's funny because they look almost exactly the same. The publishing, the style and everything's very similar.
They are, aren't they? Yeah, they've got the little ship at the bottom.
Yeah. Very interesting.
That's a ship that went to Barbados.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for reading us a little story. It's lovely.
You're very welcome, and it's great to discuss Neville and to catch up with you. Really,
it is
because it's good food for the soul. This stuff,
it is, and I think too, when you read a bit and then you discuss it, things come out of it from your experience or how you applied it or what you did with it or whatever, and it gives other people an idea. So if people want to share down below how they've used it or what they've played around with and what results they got, please do share, and that way we can learn from your experience as well, because it's always different people do it different ways. So it's fantastic. So thank you, Dan. Definitely. Thank you. We will do it again. We will do it again.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Lovely. And I will put down below.
Thank you.
I'm going to put down below the other interviews we did many years ago for those that haven't seen what we discussed then, because we did discuss a few different things in 2017. So I will put the links down to those again. So Dan, can you stay on the line? We'll say goodbye in private. And do you want to say goodbye to everybody?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, nice to chat to you all, and thanks for tuning in and listening, really. And I hope it's been interesting.
It's lovely. Thank you for your time, and thank you for looking up those passages and sharing them with us. Thank you, everybody. And food for thought for you, what has been discussed, and see how you can use it to apply it to maybe draw in and bring towards you. As you're not actually creating it because it's already exists, you're just bringing it forward. So lots of love, and as always, I will see you in the next YouTube.